evil, pure evil. Seems to us this would be a good time to do a little cursor. How do we defeat the pro-abortion argument? I talked to my good buddy, Scott Klusendorf. SLED, you want to remember the SLED, size, level of development, environment, and dependency. The issue will always boil down to that. As you're debating the issue, you're going to be able to slot their argument into one of these four columns. Correct, sir?
Almost always, except for those who look you dead in the eye and say, I don't care if it is human, I'll kill it anyway, because a woman has a fundamental right to her own freedom of bodily autonomy.
And how many people say that?
Fortunately for us, Todd, not a lot. It's mainly academics who have nothing better to do than
Peter
sit around.
Singer, basically.
Peter Singer wouldn't argue that way, but people like Judith Jarvis Thompson would, and David Boonin would, but not people you're going to meet on the street. However, we still need to be prepared to answer that question. And so I actually had this come up once in a debate. I said to the doctor I was debating, an abortionist, she said, hey, woman has fundamental right to bodily autonomy, even if it is human. I said, well, tell me this. If a woman who is pregnant wants to take thalidomide to ease her morning sickness symptoms, would you prescribe that for her? Oh, no, I wouldn't do that. Why not? Well, because it would deform the fetus. I said, well, wait a minute. If the woman has a fundamental right to bodily autonomy, what business is it of yours that you could say to her, you can't take this because it will hurt your child? It's her body, her autonomy. You have no say over it. You see, she's trying to have her cake and eat it too. It's okay for the unborn child to be killed by its mother, but not harmed by its mother through the use of the drug.
All right, another having his cake and eating it too would be Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. Hey, this is just a religious issue for me.
Right.
I can't impose my religion on others. What do you say?
Well, I would say to them, first of all, what if we were talking about spousal abuse? Would you say, that's my own personal view, rather than pass laws against men beating their wives, we're going to work on trying to get at the underlying symptoms and treat that rather than imposing law on people who might think it's okay to beat their wives? I mean, this is nonsense. Would anybody you know or I know say, hey, you want to own a slave? That's your personal morality.
Yeah, no,
we don't impose it on us. No, we wouldn't do that. Only with abortion do they say this kind of nonsense.
All right, and just to clear this up, not that it really matters, but they would say that it's never been really clear in church history when life begins. So it's ensoulment. Do any of those issues matter?
Well, first of all, we don't pass laws protecting 40-year-olds because the state takes a position on whether or not they have souls. The state does not take a position on whether you, Todd, have a soul. But it does say we can't kill you.
That's interesting.
And so here's the thing. It's a cop-out. Theologically and morally, we can argue that the unborn have a soul from the beginning. After all, a body without a soul would properly be called a corpse. But that aside, even if we set aside the issue of ensoulment, which Pelosi and Biden and others have brought up, it's irrelevant to the passing of laws to protect the unborn because the laws protect you at age 40 without saying you have a soul.
All right, fair enough. Okay, and then the famous quote, of course, of this election is, it's above his pay grade to determine when life begins.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, if it's really true that Senator Obama does not know when life begins, then we shouldn't kill the unborn because we may, in fact, be taking the life of a human being.
That's kind of the Ronald Reagan argument.
Well, it's a sound one. If you're driving home tonight after this interview and you see a coat in the road that looks like a homeless man or just an old coat, you're not going to run it over. You'll err on the side of caution. So if it's really true that he doesn't know, why is he refusing to even protect babies after they're born, which he has done for separate occasions?
All right, now this is kind of the tricky one now. There are candidates, Scott, who would say, we're going to reduce abortions. The Republicans have not been successful in bringing abortions down. Which, actually, let's start there. Are abortions going down or not?
Yeah, they actually have come down under the Bush administration.
That's
so it's a factual inaccuracy for them to even say
that. From the get-go. Right. And that's even the Guttmacher, the
Guttmacher Institute, sure.
Which is a division of Planned Parenthood.
But closely related still, correct.
Okay, all right. So they are going to work really hard on bringing them down through other social programs.
Well, imagine if we're in the 19th century and I said to you, Todd, we're not going to outlaw slavery. We're just going to work at getting at the underlying causes that cause white people to own slaves in the first place. We're going to deal with the economic issues. We're going to deal with the social conditions and the contextual issues that bring about a need, but we're not going to ban it. Well, right now, if anybody said something like that, we'd rightly call them racist because we'd recognize they were treating the slaves as property. The same thing is going on here. People are saying, well, we want to reduce the need for abortion, but we're going to make it perfectly legal to kill unborn children, and we'll even make sure there's tax dollars available to do it, which is Barack Obama's position and Nancy Pelosi's position. So this idea that they want to reduce the number of abortions, it's like having the fox guard the chicken coop. But beyond that, we need to ask these people why they want to reduce the number of abortions. If abortion is morally okay, which is their position, Why do they care how many there are?
Yeah, but see, but they look, when they say something, it just betrays their hand. When they say something like, well, we all agree that there should be fewer abortions.
Why? If the unborn are not human beings, I say have as many abortions as you want. I'm vigorously pro-choice on women choosing their own husbands, choosing their own religion, choosing the careers they want to pursue, choosing the pets they want to own, the cars they want to drive. But some choices are wrong, Todd, like killing innocent human beings simply because they're in the way of something we want. If the unborn are human and we're killing them because they're in the way of something we want, career, social status, education goals, whatever, then that is a serious moral wrong if they're human beings. If they're not human beings, what do we care?
Okay, so the whole idea of bringing them down, when the Democratic platform basically says, no, we're going to do everything we can to keep it legal,
right,
it kind of goes bang, bang.
Yeah, and you can see they're assuming the unborn aren't human. They're not arguing for it, they're just assuming it. And let's go back to my 19th century example. Again, slave owners saying, we're not going to reduce abortion, or we're not going to reduce slavery by passing laws against it, we're going to reduce it by getting at the underlying concerns.
Yeah, just nutty.
I mean, nonsense.
Okay, 30 seconds.
Sure.
Hillary Clinton, we want to keep abortion safe, legal, and rare. Christian?
Well, why do you want to keep it rare, Senator Clinton? Does it take the life of a human being? Then it seems to me you would want to pass laws protecting the unborn human. If it doesn't, why keep it rare? It all comes back to the question, why do you want it rare?
Don't forget, that is the logic, but there's an even stronger weapon than that. It's a two-edged sword. We preach the gospel and we let people know to kill a baby is a sin, and we shoot straight for that conscience that lets them know they are evil. Until tomorrow, go serve your king.